Hi, my name is Dana Williamson, conservator of the collection here at the Petersen Automotive Museum, and welcome to this edition of Driving with Dana. And I have a special guest with me today. I have our chief historian, Leslie Kendall.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm the chief historian at the Petersen Museum. Been here for a little while and have been loving this car ever since Mr. Petersen bought it.
Oh, right, so I should tell them what we're driving. We're driving a 1937 Delage D8-120. And Leslie, what is that designation? Oh, it's an Aerosport. So the D8-120, what's that designation?
There's a D8-100 and there's also a D6. So this is the very top of the line for Delage. And it's such a great car. I mean, when you're approaching it, it's got the long hood, sloping rear deck, proportions that just make it killer to look at. It's one sexy car.
So now, Delage, would you say their biggest competitor at one time was Delage and Bugatti? Those were probably...
I would say so. Delage, towards the early 20th century, was really a leader in automobile technology. They were working with single overhead cams, double overhead camshafts, supercharging, you name it. And then as time went on, the engines got more and more reliable, more and more, they got larger, for one thing, and you didn't have to have as much funky valve stuff to get the power that you wanted out of it. So they still retained double overhead cams for a while and supercharging, but for their road cars, overhead valve was pretty good. And this is one heck of an overhead valve engine.
I had read a story and some information, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but would this particular car we're driving possibly be a prototype of some of the Aerosports to come after this one?
Well, every one was a little bit different, so you could say that. It was actually, of course, a precursor, and every one that came before had a little something to do with those that followed. Interesting thing about this car is that it was modified for its original owner, the Aga Khan.
Oh, really?
It was actually widened a little bit because it was somewhat narrow, and apparently he was a man of ample dimensions. So he needed a little something that was more to his more compatible with his size.
So this wouldn't be considered really a sports car, but it would be like a sports touring car?
This would be a grand touring car. This is a GT. If there was ever a GT, it's this bad boy. Interesting. I say interesting because Delages are always equipped with some of the sexiest coachwork around, especially the D8-120, that incredibly long hood, and the sloping rear deck. It might make sense to mention now that this is the Coupe Aerosport. Mm-hmm. There's also the Delta Sport Cabriolet, of which they made even fewer of. But actually, these are more desirable because they're prettier. They have that marvelous, sloping back with a hint of fin in the rear.
So this is an 8-cylinder.
This is straight 8, 4.3 liter, 120-ish horsepower.
Now, did they make any supercharged versions? Do you know of? Or?
My hunch is that some of these were supercharged, but not officially. They didn't make these supercharged for public consumption.
Okay, because you look at the exterior and you see those chrome pipes coming out of the hood, like Duesenberg used those.
You sure do. You see the chrome flex pipes. Duesenberg had them. Ford had them. Mercedes. The supercharged Mercedes had them. This one doesn't. But when you look at the hood is very, very narrow, which gives it the desirable appearance. But it also doesn't leave much room for the exhaust manifold. Oh, so sometimes, to get the room that you need under the hood, you've got to put the exhaust on the outside, which explains the flex pipes which could explain the flex pipes on this car. Keeping in mind that looks, though, were everything, and it didn't hurt that they look bitchin' too.
That's true.
They look really, really cool.
I'll tell you, when you look at this car in profile, I mean, it's gorgeous. It is just beautiful. Now, this particular car that we're riding in, the provenance for this car, do you know the owners that this car may have had?
All I know is that it was originally owned by, or owned early in its existence by the Aga Khan. It was later discovered, and this is something everybody says, but very few really mean it. In this case, it's absolutely true. It was discovered in a barn. It was in a barn in France, painted the original colors, which it wears now.
Wow.
It was originally gold and maroon, and they retained that color.
So, other than its restoration, it was an all original car.
It was all original. It was intact. If you're going to restore a car, this is exactly the kind of car that you'd want to restore. First of all, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. It's a marvelous vehicle, and you got something very satisfying when it's done. But also, you knew exactly what you had to work with.
What is really, I think, very beautiful. The wood on the interior of this car is just beautiful.
Oh, everything about this car. This car doesn't have a bad angle. Interesting thing about looking at it on profile, it almost looks like one of the hard tops that America became so famous for after World War II. Because when you lower the windows, there's no
pillars.
No, there's no fixed window frame at the door opening. So theoretically, you have an unobstructed, well, practically speaking, you've got an unobstructed outward view and inward as well. So you got a windshield that you can crank open too. There's a knob on the dash that, depending on how breezy you want it and how fast you're going, might make sense to open it up.
Oh, and viewers, if they're watching, are going to notice that there's no stick shift, Leslie, right?
The only stick shift is a forward and reverse lever that's coming out from the tunnel, the transmission tunnel. But that's only forward or reverse, and that's because this car has what's called a Total electromagnetic transmission, and that means you can shift it without using the clutch, up or down.
Now, is that a French manufacturer?
Yeah, it's a French manufacturer. There are two kinds that became kind of famous. One was the Total, and the other was the Wilson. The Wilson was more of a pre-selector. The Total wasn't. It was a vehicle. It was a It was a mechanism that you had to shift by yourself.
Now we have a 1953 Delage with same transmission.
Identical transmission to this. Yep, you bet. You bet. Our Delage Type 178 has exactly the same transmission. And everybody before World War II, and even after World War II, were trying to develop an automatic transmission. People hated shifting. They hated the thought of grinding gears. It was difficult. It took some effort. So they're trying to get away with that whenever they possibly could. One of the first companies to do that was a company called Cutler Hammer, who had kind of a push-button transmission. Again, kind of a pre-selector, some people consider it. There was also Vulcan that had the same thing. So they're both American. And there were a few American cars that were actually equipped with those. But in France, I'm sure you could get one and put it on your Renault or your Peugeot if you wanted. But in France, it wasn't available. Automatic transmissions were not generally available until well after World War II.
It does make driving in LA traffic a bit easier.
Boy, does it. And actually, if I couldn't have an automatic in LA traffic, a Total is absolutely the perfect substitute.
Well, also, Leslie, as we were talking about the competitors to Delage and how Delage was one of the, I would say, stylish. Well, I mean, when you talk about Bugatti, how can you say that maybe one is more stylish than the other? But when this car was built, it was actually owned by Delage.
This car with Delage and Delage merged before World War II, and after World War II, Delage was the first to go. In 1953, they made their last car. Only 1 year later, Delage made their last car. So they both died after World War II. But this car was a very good company before the war. You had Bugatti, of course you had Delage, which we were just talking about. You had Hotchkiss, you had Salmson, you had Talbot-Lago, you had all these marvelous French brands that were, you know, every coach builder wanted to have their turn with one of these cars because the chassis could carry nicely proportioned coachwork. They were all very powerful, and they really looked good on a coach builder's stand or the manufacturer's stand at, for example, the Paris Auto Show or the you know, any one of the European auto shows for that matter. And it was a Concours d'Elegance Queen. People loved to take these to the Concours d'Elegance.
Now, did they debut this car in Flushing, New York, or did I hear something about it?
I don't know that they did or didn't. It's certainly possible that they did. Many cars like this were displayed, like I was saying, at the Concours before World War II, and that's when Concours meant something very different than it means today. Early on, a Concours d'Elegance was literally a concours of elegance, a competition of elegance. The lady or the gentleman or the family would dress up to match the car, or have the car painted to match the outfits, and then they would drive the cars in front of a long row of judges sitting at tables, and the judges would award them prizes according to the overall spellbinding effect of the car and the couture. And today, a Concours d'Elegance is anything but that. A Concours d'Elegance is really, it should be a Concours d'état or a Concours of condition.
Right.
Because it's all depends on the condition of the car. It has very little to do with the elegance factor or how you look going down the road or how you match up with your car. It's not about that anymore. It's just about perfectly restoring it, which is entirely understandable. But I think the day is coming when they're going to want to get back to the true spirit of the early Concours.
Well, you can just imagine a car like this going to a Concours at that time. I mean, it would be like it should have a starlet standing next to it. I mean, it's so exquisite.
Well, certainly an aspiring starlet. Well, what's interesting is a wealthy Delage aficionado is known to say that a man drives an Alfa, a man is driven in a Rolls, but a man gives to his mistress a Delage.
I love it.
It's a car, and it was very well said that it was so expensive and so exclusive and such a bauble that you would never really buy one for yourself. You could only get one as a gift. It was so extreme and so in a way outlandish. But you had to picture the time. You had to picture France before World War II and in the last glory days of that golden era, when it was all about elegance. It was all about making an entrance.
Sure.
You didn't just get there; you arrived. It was a matter of style.
Well, I feel very stylish today. How about you?
Hey, I feel pretty stylish. You know, in driving, I'm not sure how many people are able to see this, but this car gets noticed. This car gets noticed. People, pretend to be aloof, but you know they're looking at the car. You can tell.
You know what I think, especially in Southern California, LA, in particular Hollywood, people get jaded. So they see supercars all day long.
I'm pretty sure
when
you're not
they
going
see
to see
something
another
like
one of
this,
these.
it's like, wow.
You are not going to see another one of these coming. And this is, I don't care what kind of modern Bugatti you have, I don't care what kind of Rolls Royce you have, I don't care how outlandish your Mercedes G-Wagon is, you are not going to see one of these. You're going to look at this car, stop light, and go, I wish I was in that. It doesn't matter what you're driving. It's so interesting, and it makes such a grand appearance. And there's a grace about the car too. There's an elegance about it that you just don't find in modern cars. It's difficult. And of course the controls are all different too. I mean, it certainly doesn't drive like a modern car. Your gear shift lever is not on the floor, unless you want to put it in reverse. So theoretically the car has 4 speeds reverse and
Really?
Like it has 4 speeds forward.
That's fairly unusual. I don't know many cars that have.
Well, virtually every car with a Cotel electromagnetic has that. They have 4 speeds forward and 4 speeds reverse. But the car detailed so nicely. I mean, the
Do you know
wool-
what is the color, Leslie? Is it gold?
I would say the gold, I say it's a medium gold metallic with maroon reveals and maroon leather interior trim. Very nicely done. I mean, these guys can do my suits any day. Really, really beautifully turned out. And it's not wood on the dash, it's actually painted metal.
Is it really?
There's a process that they had to literally hand paint this. Now the door caps are made of wood.
Okay.
But I believe the
dash could have fooled me. I mean,
the
that
dash,
is gorgeous.
most of the dash is metal. Which makes a lot of sense. You're pushing buttons and things like that, and pulling levers. You really don't want to have it wood, because you'll chip away at it eventually, and the surface will degrade over time.
You know, Leslie, this shifter is like a paddle shifter when you think about it on a motor car.
Kind of is. Kind of is. It's wish quick. And you flick, 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 flick. You don't even need your clutch. I mean, you can just do up and down as you please. It's really marvelous. Really, really marvelous.
Well, Leslie, I want to thank you so much for taking a drive with me today and filling us in on everything about the Delage D8-120.
Well, this is fabulous. I'm so grateful. Thanks for inviting me on this drive. Any drive I'm up for. So just no matter what it is, yeah, I love these things. I love talking about them, and I really want people to come to the Petersen Museum to see them. You know, we don't have them here just to hide them away. We have them here to show people so they can enjoy it too.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.